So over the weekend, me and my wife decided to go to the drive-in. I haven't been to a drive-in in years. The last time I went to the drive-in, the double feature was Cars 2 and Green Lantern. Yeah, so I had a wonderful time at the drive-in the first time and only time I've been to it. The reason we don't really go to the drive-in is because the only one close to us is kind of far away, but we decided that it could be a fun date night to go, and the double feature bill was Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Now, I want to talk real quick. How is the drive-in somehow the best movie experience and the worst movie experience at the same time? How is that even possible? They started Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It was still too bright out, so scenes that were dark were just completely not even like visible. You know, you really got to like look in there trying to see what's going on. The screen itself is just like a bunch of wood slats. So anytime there's like a really bright scene, you can literally see like the brick lines. It's not brick, but you get the point I'm trying to say, right? Like you can see all the lines and the wood slats on the screen. The little speaker that you put in your car has like no bottom end whatsoever, but I will say it's a very clean sound. There's just like no bottom end, and like constantly throughout the movie you have people starting their cars up, or you know, they're getting in their cars, and so the dome lights are coming on. There was one person sitting in front of us that couldn't figure out how to, one, turn off their dome light, but then two, also just could not figure out how to turn off their headlights when they would get into their car. The car next to us, we had to like listen, because you know, your windows are down, you have the little speaker in your car and stuff like that, you can kind of hear people. We had to listen to Menthol Meemaw hack up more than Zack Snyder hacks around. But with all that said, it's kind of like the best experience too. There's something so, I don't know if romantic's the right word, but there's something so charming about the drive-in. You are watching a movie on a ginormous screen. You're out in the midnight like air, you're out, you know, at nighttime, you can hear kind of the crickets chirp, you know, and like there's this sense of community when you go to drive-in that's not really like, I don't really feel that in the movie theater. It's weird because I kind of feel like when I go to the theater and there's other people in the theater, I'm like, damn it, I wanted this to myself, right? But when I was at the drive-in, there was only like, I don't even know if half the lot was filled, and I was kind of like, damn, I kind of wish there was more people here. I don't know what it was about the sense of the drive-in. People were up just kind of walking around, kids were running around and playing and stuff, and Planet of the Apes is playing on the screen. You know what I mean? There's something like weirdly aesthetic about the drive-in that I really enjoyed. I will say this though, before we get into the movies, that I don't think I would go back to see a movie I really want to see at the drive-in. I think I would rather have the theater experience, because with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I can't really talk about the CGI because I don't really know how good the CGI was. I'm not entirely sure the projection was high definition. So I will kind of like, I'm kind of going to just throw that out there for the rest of this review, is that I can't really talk about CGI or things that are like focus on like shots and things like that, because I couldn't really tell. Now, with that being said, I did see Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes there, and I had a really good time watching it. I thought it was pretty fun. I love Planet of the Apes. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. I am working on a screen-to-console for Planet of the Apes as we speak, and that is going to come out when it's done, because it has turned into... These like last couple projects I've had have just turned into these monsters of videos that just like weighed down my workflow, but I am working on them, and I'm hoping to have them out sometime here soon. But Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is the fourth installment of this new series of Planet of the Apes films, taking years after War of the Planet of the Apes, like is it like 200 years maybe? It's quite a while, right? There's quite a few generations that's happened since War for the Planet of the Apes. I love this franchise, and I think Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is probably the weakest of the new franchise so far. With that being said, it's still pretty good. Now, this new film follows Noah, who is part of this clan that raises birds, and I thought that whole aspect was really, really interesting of how their community kind of worked, and kind of like the morals and kind of the, I guess, I don't know, quality of life, but the way of life of this tribe was really, really fascinating. And they had a human that was kind of like coming in and stealing stuff. Then one night, this other tribe of apes raids their camp, destroys the camp, and rounds up all the apes except for Noah, who they presumed was dead during the ruckus. This leaves Noah to try to track down and to rescue his tribesmen, his fellow apes. We meet Raka, an orangutan that is like steeped within Caesar lore and Caesar knowledge, so he kind of comes this like knowledge dump to Noah, but there's a really interesting dynamic between the two. And then we're introduced to Nova. Obviously, if you know anything about Planet of the Apes, Nova is kind of a long-standing thing with humans, especially human females, and Raka is trying to explain how humans and apes used to live together. And there's a whole like story plot line, or I guess revelation with the apes and that whole aspect that I found to be really interesting. But then we kind of get to Proximus Caesar and this new kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And that's where the film kind of falls apart for me. Now I do want to say right out of the gate, Proximus Caesar is a sweet villain, and I loved what they decided to do with the character. Kevin Durand plays Proximus Caesar, and he did an amazing job. Every time Proximus Caesar was on screen, I was like, this character's really interesting, but the film doesn't really do anything with him, and that was really disappointing. If you've seen the original films, you know what Caesar was, you know what Caesar stood for, and you know what he was trying to build. In this film, you see Proximus Caesar basically be a proxy Caesar and bastardizing everything Caesar stood for in a very self-indulgent way that was just really intriguing. But we got so little of that, and they wrap it up so quickly at the end that it kind of takes away from some of the ideas they were presenting here that I kind of wish they would have focused a little bit more on. Now I do want to say that I do think the film is beautifully shot, regardless of the lower quality of viewing experience that I did watch it in. I do think the film has some really striking imagery. I do want to watch this again. I will probably day one this on Blu-ray, watch it in our home theater, and really kind of see the details in the CGI and how it blends and see if it's on par with the originals. I can't really say that right now, but there are some striking moments. Now, something I like about these new set of films is I really enjoyed the score, and I don't really think that's here. I think the score is a lot more bland and forgettable, but overall, I do like this one. It's one that I think could go up or down on a second viewing, but I'm going to currently give this one a 6 out of 10. Now, since Ghostbusters Frozen Empire was the double bill here, which I do want to say something really quick, is there were a ton of people that left after Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, like more than half. I think only maybe a quarter of the people stayed for the Ghostbusters. And my question is it was $10.50 a person to get into the drive-in. There is a Cinemark literally 15 minutes down the road that's $8.50 for a nighttime showing. Why wouldn't you go there instead of here? Like, why would you not stay for the double? You know what I mean? Like, you're paying for an objectively worse experience, I guess. But anyway, so because of that, we decided to cram in Ghostbusters Afterlife before going to the drive-in. And I do want to state something really quick. I'm not a fan of Ghostbusters. I'm not. I have no nostalgia. I have no real feelings toward the original Ghostbusters. I never saw Ghostbusters 2, but Ghostbusters 1 is a 5 out of 10 to me. It just does nothing for me. It really doesn't. On paper, it's like The Matrix, which I'm not a big fan of either. On paper, it should be 100% a home run for me. Like, it just does things I'm really interested in. But then I watch the film and I just don't connect with it. And those things that I find interesting, I don't really think works for me in the film. Take that with a grain of salt as I go into this, because I didn't like Ghostbusters Afterlife. This was the reboot sequel. Now, I say reboot sequel because this is technically a sequel to the original Ghostbusters movies, but also trying to reboot the franchise so they can make more movies with this new cast of characters. And I hated this cast of characters. I could not stand these people outside of Paul Rudd. The mother, the daughter, and the son were just unbearable people that I could not wait for them to be off screen. I was like, I don't like you people. If I knew you in the real life, I would never talk to you. I would avoid you like the plague. And they're in this entire film. They're obnoxious, they're snarky. But if you don't know what this film's about, it's about a woman and her kids inheriting a farm from their father, and they move out there to lo and behold that he was one of the Ghostbusters. They start finding some Ghostbustery things, and they start busting some ghosts when they start appearing. And that's basically the plot of the movie. Now, I found this movie incredibly boring. I had a hard time to sit through this one. It did nothing for me. The humor always fell flat. The action is really, I wouldn't even say the action's few and far between. There's not a lot of action set pieces here, but like, I don't need a movie to be action packed for it to be enjoyable. However, when we're not doing the action set pieces, which I didn't find very fun to begin with because I just don't find them very exciting, and when we're not in these action set pieces, we're kind of in this lull where I don't think, for one, the humor is landing at all. I don't think these characters are very funny, and two is I don't really feel like they're building these characters very much outside of what they already do within the first couple seconds. I don't feel like any of these characters learn or grow or thrive, even though the film wants you to think that they do. When you actually like look at what the story is presented here, I don't feel like they really do. The most they learn is about ghost busting. Like, they learn that their father was a Ghostbuster, and that's about it. I also think the CGI in this film looks absolutely terrible. Like, it was so noticeable every time it was on screen. But yeah, I had zero connection to the original Ghostbusters. I feel like this film leans pretty hard on you having a connection to the original Ghostbusters. And I do want to say, like, personally, I would give it like a 3 out of 10. However, I can completely understand and see why somebody who does enjoy Ghostbusters would honestly really probably enjoy this. And because of that, I am going to give this a 4 out of 10 because I can see why someone who is really into Ghostbusters would enjoy this film. For me, it's not for me. It's a 4 out of 10? Yeah, it's a 4 out of 10. Now, with that being said, moving into Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, I clearly didn't have a lot of anticipation or hope. I was just here for the ride and hoping it was kind of fun. And you know what? This might be a bit of a hot take, but this honestly might be my favorite Ghostbusters film I've seen. The film picks up a few years after Afterlife, with the gang moving to New York to be full-time Ghostbusters. They also blend in a large cast to include most of the originals throughout the film that kind of really help take away from the obnoxious characters who stay obnoxious and become somehow even more obnoxious in the sequel, but we kind of have less of them and we have some more of the original cast to kind of help balance that out. It's just like Callie, Trevor, and Phoebe are just abysmal to me to watch, but they also have someone show up like Patton Oswalt, who has a small part that they basically just let do his stand-up routine while he exposition dumps. That was both clever and funny. Kamal Nanjiani, I hope I'm saying that right. He also shows up as a kind of new character to this film, and he honestly adds a lot here. I found his character to be really funny. I thought he gave a great performance. He's a comedy relief character that actually worked for me in the film to kind of help alleviate some from that main cast. But we do have such a large cast here we kind of bounce back and forth between. That does kind of help break it up. Something that I did really enjoy about this film was the villain. Even though the villain is basically worthless, it's super underutilized, very quickly cleaned up at the end of the film, but the villain is a direct consequence to Phoebe acting like a complete asswipe, which is kind of rewarding for someone who hates this character. I just kind of wish the villain would have been in it longer and kind of created some more devastation in the way to really cement him or it as a really kind of vilifying villain. And it also would have impacted the consequences more because, like, for the 2 movies I've seen this Phoebe character, like, I still feel like she probably didn't learn anything from this at the end of it. But even though I found this film to be kind of a disjointed mess, and what I mean by that is having a lot of scenes that don't really interact with each other. It's one of those films that's just here's scene A, scene B, scene C, scene D, scene E, scene F, and then we're going to get to the climax and kind of loosely tie all these scenes together. I still think it was a lot of fun, and I did enjoy this one a lot more than the other Ghostbuster films I've seen. That being said, I probably am not going to rewatch this ever again, and I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. So yeah, that was our little trip to the drive-in. It was a fun experience. Like I said, there's like this weird, it's somehow a great movie experience and also a terrible movie experience at the same time. There's just something about going to the drive-in that I find, I don't know, there's just like this aesthetic to it that is really rewarding and a lot of fun. And I would definitely go back depending on what they're showing. But yeah, so that was our little weekend drive-in. Now, if you want to support what I do, you can consider subscribing, becoming a member or Patreon, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.